Heather POV. In the meantime, the labor was brutal. And though not long in terms of how long she was in pain, it was too long for that pup to be struggling. I wanted that pup out of her quickly so we can give it proper healing. The old woman and I worked together well. I worked on keeping the baby as strong as I could. The old woman worked on Sabrina. I have no idea why she started labor early. And because of the poisoning, before I was concerned that someone had done something to make her go into labor. I thought the culprit was gone, but maybe a maid was just a pawn in the middle. Leonie, can you smell poison or something that caused this labor to start? She looked at me in surprise at the question, then closed her eyes, and I could tell she was searching through Sabrina's mind or even her body. I had somewhere in the back of my mind that it was possible, but I didn't have the time to go investigating all the information I had received, and I guess neither had Mason. Yes, she was given something to bring this pup along. I would say this morning sometime, she said, looking concerned. I nodded. I thought we caught the person who was poisoning her, but I guess that wasn't the main person. I offered more information to Leonie and hoped she could figure it out. I was too close to the situation to see it clearly. A man. I will find him, if he's on the hall. When we're finished, you can ask him and I can have some fun too. The man is evil, but I know about the attempt to bring the child on. I can work about getting that out of her system. It's too late to stop the baby coming, but at least it won't have any side effects from what this person has done. I do not understand people who harm children. This one is not even born yet. Maybe I am extra sensitive because of losing my Brenda all those years ago. Leonie offered, and I nodded, and we continued to help Sabrina and her almost there little boy. The cries of the newborn pup filled the room, and Sabrina beamed at the newborn. Leonie took him from me and left me to clean and heal Sabrina and finish ridding her of the toxin that the man gave her. We could not risk doing anything too drastic until the pup was out and safe from harm. I could not wait to get to the dining hall and grab the man that did this. Leonie came back with the little boy and placed him in the newly healed and cleaned up Sabrina. She was sitting on the bed holding her son and showing him where to get his milk. The sound of snuffles as the boy attempted to latch onto the nipple were heartwarming, and I looked forward to having a pup of my own one day. I left the room and went to the dining hall with Leonie by my side. We were both happy with the safe arrival of the pup. We met an anxious Harold halfway down the stairs. Is she okay? Harold asked, knowing the pain had stopped, and he could feel she was happier. Go and see your maid and your son, I cooed softly at him. His eyes widened, and he took up the stairs 3 at a time. I giggled at his rush, and Leonie nodded her understanding. I think she and I are going to get along, though if I really put my mind to it, she is my great-great-great-grandmother, or maybe a few more greats in there, but who was counting? It was a credit to her to be alive and strong as she is. Entering the dining hall, we headed straight to the top table, where my mate waited for me. He seemed to be relaxed and not at all stressed, like I expected him to be. We sat down and looked at the sea of faces staring back at us. Leonie said some words that only I understood, a spell or incantation, as it were, and a man I had never thought would ever work against us walked toward the table with confusion on his face, as if he had no control over his actions. And he didn't. Timothy, why? I asked, and he frowned, unsure of what I was asking, or trying to act innocent, but failing miserably. Why, what? He asked, frowning at what was happening. Why did you try and kill Harold's son? I stayed calm and kept an even voice, even though I wanted to jump over the table and strangle him. His eyes widened, and his face looked guilty as he flustered about for a comment, opening and closing his mouth. But no words came out. I It, it was... He hurt my sister. I wanted him to feel real pain. He eventually spat, after failing a few times to tell a lie. When? What are you talking about? Mason fumed back at the man he thought was a friend. He took her innocence, then he dumped her like yesterday's trash. She was so heartbroken, she left and stayed with her sister. He spat back at Mason. Did she find her mate? I asked softly, knowing that a lot of young ladies lost their innocence to these men. She left and went to stay with her sister. She was gone 6 months when rogues attacked, and she died. So no, she did not find her mate. Just a lot of heartache. And I wanted Harold to feel my pain. He mumbled sadly. I will leave your punishment to Sabrina and Harold, I said to him, and he cringed at the idea. Take him to the cells. Tie him to the wall, Mason ordered the guards. They seemed saddened by the turn of events. One of their own was now going to the cells.
Mason POV. Heather and I left the dining hall, so the pressure of our power over the people would be reduced, though we managed to subdue it considerably, and the emotions in that room and what had happened today had made it hard to keep it low. We headed to bed, feeling drained and ready to relax. Heather left Leone in charge of the lichens, and Dad, of course, will sort out the werewolves. At the moment, both Heather and I just wanted the craziness to stop, though we both knew it was most likely just the beginning. Sleep was restless, and I tossed and turned most of the night. When I eventually gave up and went to climb out of bed, I noticed that Heather was asleep on the lounge, and I felt guilty that I had not felt her leave the bed, or that I even noticed she was missing from the bed, or even climbed out of it. I must have fallen asleep at some point, and had been in a deeper sleep than I thought I had. I am so tired, as if I had not slept at all. I left Heather sleeping on the lounge and headed to the shower. The hot water was what I needed, though the shower was frustrating, and I hoped when we got settled we could get a shower that was big enough for us. This being huge is not all it is cracked up to be. I'm not sure if Heather feels the same way or not. Being 8 feet tall might have some advantages, but it also has a lot of disadvantages, like the shower. Yep, I'm complaining like a spoiled child. I miss a simple shower where I can put my head under the water and enjoy the spray. I'm squatting under the shower to get it right, and that is not the way to enjoy a good shower. I don't think I could even share it properly with Heather, and that was something I wanted to enjoy. I liked the idea of sharing the shower and washing her long hair. Heather entered the bathroom and I heard her using the toilet. She did not flush. I was ready to dart out if she did, but she tried to join me in the shower and had to laugh when there was so little room to enjoy each other's company. We made do with what we could, and I climbed out first, leaving her to rinse off the suds I had lathered up on her body. She had a lovely toned body, and I couldn't keep my hands off of her. I also can't wait to get out into the forest and go for a run with her wolf. She should be a beautiful one, even more so with the changes, and I wanted to see what the changes had done to her. She was a large lichen, so her wolf must be huge. We ate in our room and then went to check on Sabrina and her pup. She was nursing him when we arrived and welcomed us into the room, so pleased we had popped in and not at all worried about her being on show whilst feeding her son. She had named her son Lucas, after our great-grandfather, and the middle name of Mason after me. I was so overwhelmed that she had done that. She said it was to remind her that I was here for the birth, and if I did not visit often she would set him on me, and I almost choked up as I thought of leaving her and never seeing my brothers again, or my new nephew. I could not think that was right. Maybe we could work something out with Dad or Harold when he became the king. For now, I just had a few days before we had to leave. Apparently the time Leone wanted to give us was cut short, but all the lichens wanted to come out of hiding and go into the werewolf city, and see if they too could find their mates. That was a whole new issue waiting for us to arrive, and the longer we delayed, the more likely the lichens would just come anyway. Dad? I met him in his office, and Harold was there too. It involved both of them. What is going on, son? Dad asked in his usually calm, loving tone. I have a lot to live up to. My dad has been the best role model I could ask for. The lichens are talking about visiting our cities and going on the hunt for their mates. They are ready to come out of hiding. After all these years, too many have not found their mates, both male and female. How do you feel about this, or how would you suggest we go about finding their mates, with the least amount of trouble? I asked, wondering if we could organize a ball, maybe every 6 months or so. Harold and I have been discussing this. Since 4 were found, there's just by visiting here. We thought of having a ball or party once a month, Dad said, and Harold nodded his agreement. The palace could control how many come at once. They can house over 2,000 here, and maybe do hunt events and stuff like that. Is once a month too often? I asked, thinking about how that would work and the enormity of having to feed and house that many people every month. Not at the beginning. We can send out invitations to come here. That way we can control the amount that attend. Starting with a few packs at a time, you can send what lichens you want at a time. I understand your lichen lifespan is much longer than ours, and some may have already outlived their mates. Do you think they would get a second mate if that was the case? Harold looked at me as if I had all the answers, and that made me think of the information overload I had when I first transformed. So I asked my head the question. Silly, I know, but I was not sure how else to word it. My head is full of stuff I had yet to even start to look at, a virtual library of information gathered over thousands of years. So if we send you some lichens, a mix of men and women who have not found a mate yet, you will gather, say, 10 packs at a time, or maybe more, depending on the response. We want to start with those who have not had a mate, not those looking for a second chance or chosen one. That sounds good. When you go to your new home, you will get a better feel of how maybe lichens are in need of mates, and we can talk more when we have an idea. I do not feel comfortable with lichens roaming around our packs looking for their mates just yet. Many are still afraid of you, rather large people. Harold was doing most of the talking, which made me feel that Dad had asked him to take over, just not made the ceremony yet, not with all that is going on. Have you thought about the man we just put in the cells? Are you going to kill him? He tried to kill your mate and pup. I asked, wondering if Harold had even thought about this yet. I wish to talk to him first, find out who the girl was, and more about her death. He may be angry at me for no good reason. I do not remember ever taking a girl's innocence. Maybe it was one of our brothers, but I want more information before I go and kill a man who may just have the wrong information, though he will never have a place of trust again.
Chapter 103. Heather, POV. The week went way too fast. Saying goodbye to family and friends felt so final. We were heading to an unknown place with little known people, and all I had to rely on was my mate. He was the only one I could trust. Funny how things had changed. I had wondered what would happen if I had not been dragged to the palace and met Mason, and if I refused to give blood. Would they still have found me? I could sit here and think about it all the what-ifs, till the sun rose and set and rose again. But it would not change one thing. I am now the Lichen Queen, Mason the King, and I'm over 7 feet tall. My wolf is going to be huge, I can feel it. Sky said she was now bigger than a horse. An average wolf would come to just above our knees, and the elf is about our shoulder height. And that is one very large wolf. She assured me that we would still run on all 4s and not 2 legs, as some had informed us when we were kids. I was relieved. The image of running on 2 legs just looked wrong, and I was uncomfortable with that. I was going to be so different, as well as being so large. To run on just 2 legs seemed too weird. A line of 6 massive limousines arrived to take us to our new home. I have no idea where the pack lives. Mom and Dad came to say goodbye, along with my younger twin brothers. They will miss me the most out of my siblings, as I had been tutoring them, getting their grades up, and teaching them the gamma position. Dad was going to miss my organization skills, and Mom would miss me, like losing a good friend. We were more than just mother and daughter. We shared a lot. She would come to me when she was concerned and confused about my sisters, who were being stupid. My mom would ask me what they were doing. It was at those times we had a good laugh, when they tried a new product and it didn't work, or when they tried a new dance and it was hilarious to watch. But they thought they were being sexy. The line of limos arrived, and it was a sign of their wealth and strength. It was a little overboard. I could have just ported over to the other pack house, but Leonie said it was more for our people than my family and friends, as they needed to see that I was now the queen, and my mate was the king. I thought it was stupid, but who was I to argue with their protocol? If that was the way they needed to be to prove who is who, I guess it's fine. To me, it was like wearing a ball gown to go shopping. Stupid, right? Mason and I sat in the back of a specially made limo. It was bigger, higher, longer than any I had ever seen before. It needed to be, because of our height, and our legs would never fit in an average limo. I looked around the inside and giggled. Mason looked at me and raised his right eyebrow. We had an agreement not to look into each other's minds. It had become an issue, and we needed to know when our thoughts were our own. So I agreed we would be as before we were mated. And though it could be hard sometimes, when I feel like he wants to get in my head, I asked that he do a sort of knock. When he wants to talk to me, scratch any feelings, that's the way to go about it. Can you see Jerry driving this? I said, as I chuckled at the thought of Jerry behind the wheel. He would be too small to see over the steering wheel. It was that large. Mason chuckled and nodded to where my mind had headed, and it was funny. It looked like a child driving a car. The driver was shorter than us, but still larger than the average person in height, and poor Jerry would be lucky to reach his shoulders. Not that Jerry was short, but definitely not large enough for this vehicle. The driver often glanced at us through the rearview mirror, and I wonder how much the Lycans knew of us arriving today, or about who we were. So much was not explained, and I'm not one that copes well with half information. My organizing mind likes to have as much information as possible. Even Brenda had been quiet lately, and that worried me. I was expecting her to be rambling away in my mind right now. I had to double-check that I had not inadvertently blocked her out. The trip to our new home was an 8-hour drive. That did not make sense to me, as I thought they had arrived a lot quicker than that. Maybe they broke all the speed limits? Before, when they kidnapped me, they ran through the forest and came out at some point on the other side. I remember them throwing me into a van, but how long that took, I don't clearly remember. I had lost track of time whilst under the influence of whatever drug they sprayed over me. Mason must have sensed my unease as he reached over and pulled me to him. I snuggled into his chest, and somehow, with the warmth of his body and the constant beat of his heart in my ear, I ended up asleep. I woke up to being carried up some stairs and soft voices talking. I wriggled my body a little to get comfortable in his arms and relaxed. I was not totally asleep any longer, but I did not want to open my eyes and look around. I was too happy being in my mate's arms, knowing that he would protect me if need be. Mason lowered me onto a soft bed and covered me with a blanket before leaving the door. I'm not sure why he left. Maybe he wanted a tour? I wasn't really interested in this place yet. My last visit was not a happy one, and I was warm and comfortable lying here. I could calm my mind and prepare myself for what was to come. I must have dozed back off to sleep, because some time later I was awakened by Mason. He had brought up some food for us to enjoy. He was in a towel, having had a shower, and I had slept through it all, much to my annoyance. I would have had a fun time having a shower with Mason, feeling his hands roam my body, the tender, soft touches. And now I was getting aroused. That is not where I had intended my thoughts go to. At least they have a decent shower here. I can fit under it and have some space above the shower head. That's great. One of the few things I was complaining about back home. Mason was in awe of the bathroom, something I only vaguely glanced at when I was relieving myself the last time I was here. I just wanted to get out of here fast. You're so easily pleased, I grumbled as I stretched out the kinks before sitting up and sniffing the air to see if I could recognize what Mason ordered for dinner. What time is it? It was dark outside, and I had no idea how long I had dozed off for. Midnight. We got here about 2 hours ago. I thought I'd let you sleep while I had a look around here. This place is huge, larger than the palace. And not far away is a huge city, where the Lycans more or less run the whole place. Mason sounded like he was in awe of the place. And although that felt weird, I was glad he was maybe going to enjoy living here.
Mason POV. Heather was asleep in my arms as we drove to our new home. I kept kissing and stroking her hair, trying to give her my love. She has had a hard time. I may have a lot going on in my mind, with many wanting my attention, but mine is only minor compared to how she was being mentally bombarded. We are both trying to learn how to push all the intrusions to one side. We have yet to recognize what ones are important and which ones are just being a pain in the butt, and we have to let our wolves enjoy some peace too. They have been questioned by many other Lycan wolves too. I had not thought that wolves would do that, but I guess they need to see the leader of the pack and submit to them. So our poor wolves are exhausted from all the Lycan wolves trying to get to know them and want to organize a run where they can come and rub up against them and get their scent. Heather and I had to learn how to block the intrusion of our wolves too. It took a while for us to experiment on how best to help them. We have found a compromise, but not a total solution yet. This is all new to both of us. Think of a pack link, then multiply it by about 100, and you might be close. So many smaller packs within the packs. It was mind-blowing the things we have yet to wade through. I just hope Leonie can help us through these beginning, stressful times, or maybe Heather will have a breakthrough and sort them all out. It is beyond my logic at the moment, and I have to be guided by Heather, though I may not like it. She is the boss and has been since we met, and that is a fact. I chuckled at the thought, thinking of the day we first met and how headstrong she was. Looking at what is happening now, it is a good thing she is stubborn and headstrong. Seeing the palace for the first time as it appeared out of the front window and still a long way away took my breath away. It was huge, bigger than our castle, and it was hard to say how many floors it had, but I could easily see 6 floors above a very high wall. We had driven through a large city. I was not sure what the name of that city was. I did not pay attention to it, having almost dozed off myself, but it was one I had not visited before, and I had visited many. Then we went through a thick forest, and breaking through the trees was this large palace. It had battlements and towers like our castle does. It was a magnificent sight to see, and I was glad this drive was nearly over. I needed to stretch my legs. The entry to the palace was lined with people waiting to greet us. I climbed out of the limo with Heather in my arms and pulled her closer to my chest. The woman, Leonie, seeing how Heather was asleep and how I was being so protective of her, Leonie shooed everyone away and led me to our room. It was on the top floor. The elevator showed 10 floors, and Leonie whispered that the top floor was all ours, and no one was allowed up there unless we gave them permission, not even the maids. The top floor was opulent, way above anything I had ever had before, and I thought we were extravagant. Everything was a large size. The ceiling was high, a good 15 feet high. I had no worries about hitting my head on anything in this place. There were floor-to-ceiling windows and doors. Our room was at the end of a long hall. Wooden, ornate double doors were swung open by Leonie, and I followed her into a very large bedroom. The bed was supersize, which I was glad to see. My feet won't be dangling out of this bed. I placed Heather down onto the bed and covered her with a soft, fluffy blanket and kissed her forehead, leaving her to sleep a little longer. She needed it, having been a very hectic week leading up to our departure. Leonie led me to the dining hall where I joined her to have a light meal. I was hungry from the drive, having little to eat along the way, and asked Leonie to have a tray made up for me to take to Heather later. Leonie filled my head up with the basic rundown of the place, and after a light meal, which she queried, told her I would eat a larger portion when Heather was awake, and the tray should be for the two of us, and nodded her understanding. I noticed her eyes lost focus briefly, and then I knew she had just ordered a meal for us. Leonie took me around the palace, showing me the main library and our office, a large beautiful pool and gardens I know Heather is going to love, our personal gym and the training area. I noticed a lot of people gawking at us as we walked around, or was it me they were staring at? It did not faze me. I was too busy looking and taking in all the stuff Leonie was explaining. And if they did annoy me, Leonie said all I had to do was growl at them, and they would scatter like the rats they are. I chuckled at Leonie's comments. I think we are going to get on well. She was my mate's family relation, as Leonie was her great-grandmother a few times over and held the position of the previous queen for many years. She would know all the people in this building, and more. Leonie yawned and excused herself to retire for the night, leaving me in the kitchen, getting a meal sorted for Heather and myself, taking it up to the 10th floor on a trolley, and shooing the maids who tried to take it from me away. I pushed it into our room and was pleased to see that Heather was still asleep. The shower was a treat. The shower head way above my head, and plenty of room to share the shower with Heather. This is going to be my favorite room, and I can't wait to bring Heather here. They even have a very large tub that we can sprawl in and enjoy each other's company. I know I have said things here are big, but in this room, I appreciate the size very much.
Chapter 105. Heather, POV. Midnight. I must have been tired to have slept so long. We had so much going on before we left home, and I had to make sure that Sabrina was fully healed, and the tiny baby was fine. Leonie said I was fussing over nothing. Healed is healed, and though in most cases I would agree, I had a special place with Sabrina and the baby, and I think I did not want to leave without one last cuddle. Leaving felt like there was some kind of finality to it. Leaving all my friends and family behind was harder than I thought it would be. Harder than when I had to move away from home the first time. The food Mason brought up was consumed like two starving beasts. I could not believe the amount I could eat now, and Mason ate double the amount I did. And I think we both looked longingly at the empty plates. Once the food was gone, I headed to the bathroom. I needed a shower, and when I entered the bathroom this time, I appreciated all that Mason said earlier. The shower was bigger and better. And I loved the multiple shower heads hitting me from all different sides. And you could change it to being from only one and from the bath. I couldn't wait to fill it and climb in with Mason beside me. Mason dragged me back to bed, where he enjoyed teasing me. His kisses and biting, his hands roaming my body in gentle movements. I was hungry again, but not because of food. This was a deep down hunger that crept up on me. I grabbed Mason's now rock-hard member in my hand, barely about to go around its girth, and squeezed it gently. "Can we use this, or are you just going to play with me all night?" I cooed in his ear and bit down on his lobe, tasting his blood. I had bitten harder than I intended, but instead of him yelping in pain, he groaned as if he enjoyed the small amount of pain I had inflicted. He thrusted his hips, taking his member and sliding it in my hand. I giggled at him. "Is that a yes?" My eyes were closed as I kissed his neck and slowly hunted his face for his mouth. The moment I found his lips, he thrust his tongue into my mouth and danced with my tongue, rolling me over so he was now on top of me, my hand no longer holding his erection. His tongue thrusted in and out of my mouth in a provocative motion, mimicking his intent. As I moaned under him, he lined his erection at my opening and pushed ever so slowly into me. I growled at how slowly he was entering me, wanting to lift my hips and make him enter quicker. But Mason was in control, and I could not move as I wanted. He had one hand on my hip, holding me still as he teased me with his length, not plunging all the way in, but maybe halfway, then pulling back a little, making me growl again at him in frustration. He chuckled into my mouth as his tongue continued to dance and play. I wanted more, but he was keeping me on the edge, showing me who was the master in the bedroom. And he was, no denying. He had lots of experience, and it showed by his control and his understanding of my needs. Was I jealous of those other women? No. He was mine now. And whatever happened in the past, I can't change that, even if I wanted to. And I've never been a girl to be jealous. I had two sisters who showed me that they could get a man into bed really easily. Mason thrusted deep into my core, and I screamed out in pleasure. Our rhythmic motions of lovemaking were now steady and strong. Slowly, the pace gained speed as we both felt our end nearing, the quest for release urgent. Mason had long stopped kissing me, our need for breath more urgent as we panted from the exertion needed to reach our peak. Mason moved his arms so he was leaning on his elbows. His hands were holding my head gently as he thrust deeper. I lifted my legs around his waist and felt him go even further, hitting and rubbing a place that sent me skyrocketing into bliss as I screamed out his name, as I exploded and wrapped in ecstasy. Mason soon followed me with a roar of his own and filled me with his warm liquid. He stood resting on his arms, keeping his body weight off of me the best he could, his breath ragged and short, his eyes closed as he savored the moment. I looked at him with so much love as I took all of this in. He was such a good mate, considerate, loving, and, lucky for me, bloody fantastic in bed. This was our first tender moment in this place. We have now christened this place with our love. And I have to admit, this bed, being so much larger than our old one, is perfect for us. We have plenty of room to roll around in and enjoy each other's company. Exhausted, Mason rolled off of me and turned me around so I had my back to him, and he spooned me from behind. It was not long until I heard his breath slow and deepen, and he succumbed to sleep. I was not yet ready to fall asleep, so I enjoyed the warmth and comfort of my mate's arms as I considered what needed to be done. In the coming weeks, Leonie had mentioned several internal troubles and had not elaborated on them. Trying to guess what they were was useless and time wasting, and I was not the type to dwell on the unknown problems and end up making ones that don't exist. I like to know what I'm up against and work with that. The sooner I get settled into this place, the sooner I can get family to visit, or I can visit them. I have a nephew I want to hold again. Closing my eyes, I looked into my mind. Yep, that is literally what I did. When I did this, it was as if I walked into a large library with lists of subjects to investigate. When my mind touched, it was like a hand reaching out and grabbing a hold of a subject. It sort of opened like another doorway, and rows of books lay in front of me, each with information of that subject, broken down into smaller pieces about the subject that I touched on. I touched on the history of the lichens. The information goes back thousands and thousands of years, and I would be reading it forever. I decided that was too much to take in today. I closed that subject with a brief thought and smiled to myself. I had not thought about what I was doing. It was as if I already knew how to navigate through this minefield of waiting information. I found what I was looking for. After the last war. This was something I felt I needed to know, so I opened the section and grabbed the first book, and was shocked. I did not need to read it like we read a book. When I opened the book, the information bloomed in my mind, and I instantly knew what happened. And not just in words, but pictures of people and places were shared. I was concerned about my ability to remember all this information, but my brain was no longer working like a normal person's mind. This was scary and exciting at the same time. To put it in the easiest way I can think of, I was now like a huge working computer with unlimited storage and memory ability, and my analytic mind was super fast. I found the part where I shared things with Mason, where we had joined together and overlapped, as it were, where we could read and hear each other's thoughts, and made some changes, so we both had our privacy back. And looking at the history, it was common for mates in the past to have the same issue, where the overlapping thing happened, so I did not feel bad about closing that door for now. Having worked out how my information passed on to me worked, I relaxed deeper into the arms of my mate and fell into a dreamless sleep.
Mason POV. I was dragged from my sleep by someone knocking on our door. Groggily, I stumbled to the door and pulled it open, not thinking about how I was dressed, or should I say not dressed, or where I was. My brain had not even woken up, and I had forgotten for a moment where I was. A scream from a woman on the other side of the door gave me pause. I looked down at this old woman and her shocked face and realized I was naked, and she was staring at my flaccid dick. "What, old woman? Have you never seen a naked man before? We are werewolves. We are often naked." I growled at her, trying to cover my own embarrassment for not thinking. Usually at home, if someone is banging on my door at this hour, it is one of my brothers in a drunken state, and I had momentarily forgotten where I was, which was stupid really, but I had not had much sleep. "Of course I have," she sputtered back, red-cheeked, still staring between my legs, almost making me feel uncomfortable with her staring at me down there. "What do you want? I was sleeping. Or is that something you don't do in this palace? Be quick. I want to be back to bed before you wake my mate, and she is a scary woman when she is woken up too early." I had no idea if Heather was a grumpy person when woken like I had just been, but it was worth hurting this old woman. At least that got her looking up at my eyes and away from my groin. "You have visitors. Some elders are here demanding to see the king and queen." She all but whispered back at me, trying to look past me and see if Heather had been woken up. "What time is it?" I barked back, already desperate to end this conversation and get back to bed. 5 a.m., sir." She was still whispering, but her eyes were back down to my groin, and I was now getting annoyed at her and her staring. How rude of them to demand to see us at this time. I have had 3 hours sleep. I'm not going to go down there to see people who have no respect for me or my mate, or what a reasonable time to call upon us. If they are not dying, I don't want to know. Now in the future, only wake me up in an emergency. And get out of here and go tell them to fuck off and come back this afternoon. Then I slammed the door in her face and away from my groin, not caring for how I had just behaved. I walked back to my bed and climbed in, spooning Heather, and fell back to sleep. Sometime later, Heather started to stir, waking me up. I pulled her close to me and nuzzled her neck. "Asleep. Tired," I croaked out, not wanting to start the day and face that old woman again. She did not seem to care how uncomfortable I might have been seeing an old woman stare so blatantly at me like that. I had no problem being naked or being stared at, but that woman was so old. She should not look like she wanted. "We must get up. We have duties to perform. Some important elders are coming today." Heather sounded like she had to be ready for some important meeting, and I just told them to fuck off. "They came at 5 a.m. this morning. I told them to go away." I mumbled back. 5 a.m.? Why come that early? I'm glad you told them to go away. I would not have appreciated getting out of bed at that time. We had barely fallen asleep." At least Heather was in agreement then, that it was too early to be visiting anyone. "What is the time now?" I asked, not wanting to move out of bed yet. I was very comfortable. 11 a.m. Guess we had better get up and head down," Heather said, and her stomach took that moment to rumble, and I chuckled at her body's agreement of getting up and going downstairs. Reluctantly, I got up with Heather and got dressed. Neither of us wanted to start the day, after such a late night and our loving activity. When we reached our room, down the long hallway, looking at the pictures on the wall, not knowing any of them, some old statue of a man and a woman sitting either side of each window. It was as if they were looking out over the land. It was eerie. That was on the right-hand side as we left our room. The left-hand side was the doors. I guess one day when I have time, I might go look at what we have in this suite and see what Heather would like to decorate. I might as well, if what they say, we are going to be here a very long time. We entered the dining hall. Many people were seated, eating lunch. I followed Heather to where she wanted to sit, and I pulled out her chair and she sat down. I looked at what was on the table and then behind me on the long table. The coffee was up on the long table, so I left Heather to pick up what she wanted and headed to get us both a coffee. So far we had said no greeting to those in the hall, and they all just stared at us as we walked in and found a place to sit. When I came back to the table, Heather had made 2 plates and had started to eat hers. I looked at what she chose and grinned. Lots of love meat and gravy. We both love our roast meats, and though my wolf may prefer it raw, he never complains when the plate is filled with meat. I ate that plate load, and while I got up to grab more coffee, Heather filled our plates again. We did this 3 more times before we were seated. Our new lichens have huge appetites. It took a lot of food to sate even Heather. At the table around us, the eyes watched us and followed our every move as we kept eating. Still, none made eye contact or spoke. I was not sure if they were not allowed to unless we spoke or were too afraid to speak. Heather and I talked about what we thought we needed to do today, and we both agreed we needed to find the office and see what was waiting for us before we started to look for other work.
Chapter 107. Heather POV. The food was good, just the right amount of spices I enjoyed. Mason seemed to devour his too. Both of us seemed to have gained a large appetite, and it was more than just our new, larger build. There was plenty of food filling both Mason and I. We headed down a hallway, Mason leading the way as he had the tour and remembered where the offices were, and I was happy to look around and take in the pictures on the walls and the statues they have everywhere. I didn't understand their meaning that they had behind them. Mason did not knock on the door, but pushed the door open and walked in. I followed in behind him. Inside was Leonie, sitting behind the desk, doing something on the computer. "Good. You are here. Sorry about earlier. If I had known the elders were coming so early, I would have made sure they did not wake you," Leonie said when she got up from her chair and walked around the desk to give me a hug. Something I was not expecting. We're not that close yet. Then she did the same thing to Mason, and he stiffened as he, too, was taken by surprise. Leonie just had a way with her. I guess 4,000 years of experience does top us. Thank you," Mason replied. "I have to admit, I loved the way you answered your door and then told Jessica to tell them to fuck off. I was laughing for quite a while after she came to me all flustered and flushed bright red. I don't think she's seen a naked man for a long time. Her description of you seemed to be stuck on one region, and she was impressed." Leonie chuckled and turned a little red herself. Mason looked at her with a frown, lost with how to answer or comment on that. The whole palace would know how well endowed my mate is, I guess, now. I chuckled along with Leonie as Mason stood glaring at us both, and that made me laugh all the more. Eventually, he joined us with a laugh and nodded and shrugged. What else could he do? He answered the door with it full on display. "The elders are waiting in the main meeting room. I stuck them there at 5 this morning, and they've been pacing the floor waiting for you to arrive." "What's this all about?" Mason looked at her with confusion and concern. It's our first day. There were already problems? "Mates, of course. You allowed 4 to take werewolf mates. Now there is division between those wanting a mate and those who say we can only have a lichen for a mate. This is an ongoing argument that has been going on for a very long time and frustrates many who are old and have yet to find their mate." "We've already made that decision. I guess a mind link to all lichens should be made to clarify our stance on that," I suggested to Leonie. "Can you speak with the elders before you make such an announcement? Or maybe we send the announcement to the alpha of each section first?" Leonie pushed. "We can. Please, lead the way." Mason stood to the side and waved his hand to the door, indicating for Leonie to go first. The room the elders were in was huge, and I guess I need to get used to things being that way. Lichens here don't do small things. About 30 men and women were in the room, some seated enjoying a drink and chatting, a few walking around, obviously bored and impatient. As we entered the room, all eyes darted to us, and they stood and walked before us, kneeling on the ground before us. "Stand and take a seat," Mason calmly ordered. Most lifted their head to look at me, as if asking for permission, which made Mason growl, causing any doubt to be gone. They rushed to their seats and waited for permission to speak. I sighed. Mason could have been a little less harsh. The power he carries now is a lot higher than before. A simple growl, like he had just done, almost made them cower, and I don't want that. "Sorry." Mason mind-linked me, and I felt his surprise at the level of power his small growl made. I guess we have a lot of things to adjust to. Taking a seat, just a few chairs down from the head of the table, this caused small murmurs to run around the room. They had expected us to take the main seat, but we both agreed to meet them on equal terms and go from there. If we needed to put on more authority, we would. But to start out, we would be a little more casual, We needed them to talk and not be afraid of us. We tower over all of them anyway, and Mason is nearly 2 feet taller than all the women, and a foot taller than most of the men. We both must look intimidating to all of those who don't know us. Speak, Mason tried to ask as calmly and as softly as he could. The whole room started to talk all at once, and I rolled my eyes at this. One at a time, please. How about we start from this lovely person to my right and go around the table? I suggested, and the man next to me turned bright red. We want to know your stance on mixed breeding. Will that not weaken our lichen side? He stammered out, trying to convey what he meant, and I knew exactly when he meant. And I needed a moment to think about the answer. Name? I barked back instead, getting them all on the back foot. Marcus, he shyly replied. Is this the reason for this meeting? Not to get to know us and greet us, but to demand how we feel about mating? Mason tried to keep his voice calm, but it still was powerful and made many cringe back from his tone. Yes, we need to know, another man started to say. I put my hand up to halt his speech. Please, go around the table, starting from Marcus, and give us your names. Each person said their name, some elaborated on their title, as if that made any difference to me, and then waited for me to speak again. My voice was more controlled and less intimidating than Mason's. Thank you. Now regarding our stance on mating. If you find your destined mate, regardless of the species, you should claim them as your mate. The goddess gave us that mate for a reason, and to deny your mate is going to make you weaker, though the ultimate choice is your own, and finding your mate is a guide for the best you can get. Why would you reject them and take the second best? I was annoyed with people rejecting their mates because of species. Playboys were another matter, but I came around. I did believe in destined mates, but I was more disappointed in mine. In the beginning, who wanted a playboy as their mate? But he found his way into my heart, and we got over the bumps along the way. Was I a bitch in the beginning? You bet. I was shocked and hurt that I had been given a mate that had been with more women than I even know. And he proved that he could be what I needed. And then I stopped being a bitch.
Mason. POV. My tone of voice and the power that radiated from me surprised me a little. I know things have changed dramatically since I became Heather's mate, and I also accept that I'm still getting stronger each day, and I'm not sure when our changes will stop, even though Heather had some more changes. They are not as noticeable as when we changed size, but we are still growing. And I think what is going on in my head has changed too. Even my wolf is still changing. His abilities are stronger, faster, and more flexible. I like these changes, so far. But I have still got to learn to control all these changes. I do not know if I'm doing as well as I hoped, but I will continue to wing it. These so-called elders were driving me nuts. They have stupid reasoning, and yeah, Heather was against me at the beginning, but I deserved all I got, and at no time did I think she wanted me to reject her, just to hold off a bit longer and prove myself. I get that. I was stupid and reckless, but these elders who are supposed to represent the people are crazy if they expect us to bow to them and agree to what they are saying. No way. Everyone deserves to find their fated mate. Stop! I growled at the elders as they continued to argue with Heather about mates. The table instantly stopped their arguments and stared at me. The king of the werewolves is organizing a ball. Once a month and on the full moon, all the alphas will get informed of this, and they can submit the names of those interested in going to the ball, male and female. I will converse with the king, and we can work out numbers that can attend, and we will be allowing all unmated lichens to go over time, not all at once. We cannot accommodate huge numbers, but we'll work that out before the next full moon. Anyone who does not want to find a mate like this can simply not submit their names. However, you will not victimize anyone who wishes to attend or take a mate from the ball. I growl out my orders and make sure I put a little bit of power into them. I see it had the desired effect on them. "What about those who don't like it?" one brave elder asked. "Are you saying you do not like it?" Heather asked softly, and I felt a shiver go down my back, knowing she was up to something and these people had no idea what was coming. I have been the recipient of that tone, and I am glad it is not directed at me. "No, I do not agree with that," one of the elders spat out in disgust, as if that would make a difference to what was about to happen. I was actually looking forward to seeing what she was going to do. At the moment, I had no idea. "Does anyone else not agree with it?" 2 more elders showed their dislike to finding mates this way. "Does your whole pack feel this way, or just you?" Heather asked, still calm and controlled, and I was loving every part of it. She is so sexy when she gets like this. "The pack will abide by our decisions. We are the elders, and they do as they are told." One answered the wrong answer. I could feel it. "As your queen, I will remove you from the Elder Council. Leonie, can you please take note that these 3 members are now no longer council members, and can you please organize a letter to go to all the packs, letting them know about this and to submit new names that they consider good candidates for the new positions available? Maybe it is time to change all the elders in the council. Also, could you let them know about the ball and submit the names of interested parties so we can get numbers on how many are interested?" Heather politely asked Leonie, whose eyes widened and a grin filled her face, beaming out with joy. "I object! You cannot do this!" One of the dismissed elders stood up, yelling at my mate, his face red with rage. Heather did not say a word. She turned her beautiful eyes at the man, and you could see him trying not to fall to his knees. But in the end, he was prostrate on the ground, begging for forgiveness for his outburst. "This meeting is over. Oh, and if you wish to be part of the Council of Elders, make sure your name is submitted. As of this moment, none of you are council members." Heather growled out and stood up. I stood with her and so did Leonie, and we left the meeting room, leaving behind arguments between the comments and complaints about opening their mouths. Now they were all out of jobs. We headed back to the office and shut the door. "Leonie, can you suggest a person who would be our personal assistant? I didn't expect you to be the one doing all of this. It was just good to say that at the meeting," I suggested, and Leonie gave me a soft smile. "That is the best meeting I have been to. In years, too. They have gotten too big for their boots and needed to be taken down a peg or two. Thank you for making my day." Leonie sat on a chair and chuckled away as she typed away on her laptop. Heather sat on the desk chair looking at the computer, and I felt like I was left out, not knowing what to do at that moment. I looked around and found a coffee pot and made all of us coffee. By the time I had the coffee made and placed it on the table, Leonie had sent out the emails to the packs, and Heather had finished looking through the computer. "Thanks," Leonie said absent-mindedly, still looking at the laptop. "Leonie, we are getting responses already. With interest in the ball, names will be forwarded tomorrow," Heather said, as she stared at her computer and was smiling at the emails she was getting. "Mason, come and look at this." Relieved I was going to be included in this, I moved to the other side of the desk and looked at the computer. She already had 20 email responses on the ball and 3 for suggested Elder Council members. "Wow, they were only just sent out." I responded to the volume of responses in only half an hour. "You are only giving the people what they have been asking for. I was too weak to fight them. Too many against me, but with the 2 of you, it is wonderful to see them. I am excited for our people. Oh, I have called 5 of my ladies and 3 men to come and see you. They should be here soon. They are the few I would suggest might be suitable for your personal assistance. And Mason, I have organized your office to be cleaned. You should be able to enter it tomorrow and start fresh. I suggest the two of you decide who is going to do what. There is enough work to keep you both very busy," Leonie said as she continued to type away on her laptop. Shortly later, a knock on the door, and Leonie got up and answered it. I smiled at her doing the simple tasks. She was queen only a few days ago and was now working as our assistant, and she did not act as if it was below her at all. "Mason, Heather, these are my trusted helpers, and you can pick one or all of them to assist you." The group of 8 stood tall and waited for an order, or whatever we had in mind. "Come and sit down, please. We have some questions," Heather suggested, and the 8 sat at the table, and I stayed behind the desk and Heather went to sit at the table to interview the group.
Chapter 109. Heather, POV. These few were all that Leonie trusted. It was a shame that there were only 8 people. It made me shiver, thinking how hard it must have been for Leonie to have so few trusting people. All the others were fighting for power. That was why they hunted for me, hoping one of their own would mate with me and shift the power somehow. I had not been in this type of situation before. Most of the people I work with were family or friends of family. Only at school were there people who you could not trust, and that was mild compared to this. "Could you tell me your name, please?" I asked softly. They gave me their names, and I slowly asked silly questions, and then more in-depth ones. Not sure how deep to go. They all knew the computer system and had worked with Leonie for a while. They each had their own specialty, and I think I would like for them all to work with us. Maybe I have 4 with me and 4 with Mason. I would let them work out who was the boss of the 8 of them. I could always change it later if I felt the need. Leonie was happy that we took them on. Apparently, they were worried that they would be out of a job now that we had taken over the place. We still had lots to learn, and I would not consider having taken over as much as a side shift for now. Mason was learning about the security in the castle, so I was hoping he would look into the security system here and see how we could improve it. I would be happier if he took over that side of things. He looked a little lost when we returned to the office, and I can understand why. I hated it when I was training my brothers and had nothing to do in the office, like a fish out of water. "Mason, would you like to see about the ball and the dates and the quantity and accommodation? I can put a list together of those who are interested. It should be fun. Do we want to attend the ball to see how the first one goes?" I asked, getting excited about the ball. I love going out and having fun and dancing. I don't like crowds and clubs, but this type of party I do enjoy. "That sounds doable. We can make a weekend out of it and go see my family too. I think you would love to see your mom again," Mason said, and I could have kissed him in that moment. He was that adorable and considerate, nothing like I had imagined in the beginning. Time flew by, and we got to find out fast who we wanted around us and who we did not. We did get every one of those that I did not really like to get on their knees and give their fealty to us. They needed to give us a pledge of loyalty, and though you could see some wanted to resist, they gave in. And we are now working toward a better Lycan image. We may be big, but we are beautiful. That is my logo at the moment. My slogan, if you will. I was lying on my bed, watching Mason get dressed. I did not feel like getting out of bed just yet. We had been here for nearly a month now, and the first ball was almost upon us, and I was feeling rather lazy. "Mason?" I called out sweetly, trying hard not to let my voice give away that I was about to say something, and I could hopefully catch him by surprise. Hmm? He said distractedly as he tried to put on his tie. Not sure why he's always struggling with it. I think he ties it wrong, so I will come and fix it and give him the opportunity to hold my hips. You're going to be a dad, I said casually. Okay, he said, and I knew he had not taken in what I had just said. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What? Oh, he did not reach 10. Nice. You heard me, I replied, climbing off the bed and coming to him to make his tie. You're with Pup? He asked softly, pulling me closer to him as I reached him to fix his tie. Yep, I answered, leaning back a bit to reach his tie. Forget the tie for a moment. He dropped to his knees and placed his ear to my belly, as if he could hear the baby's heartbeat. My wolf is ecstatic. He said he can hear the heartbeat, Mason said, reverently, and stroked my belly with his hand, as if he's petting his pup. Hey, little one, this is your dad speaking, he says to my belly, and I giggle at him. He's so adorable. Standing up, he takes me into his arms again and gives me a searing kiss. Have you told your mom or dad yet? My mom and dad? He asked excitedly. He was like a kid in a toy shop. No, you're the only one I have spoken to. I thought you would like to be the first to know, I answered, having now had the chance to fix his tie. We gotta tell them. We should do a mind link that includes your mom and dad and my parents. Yeah, I had learned how to do that sort of thing. I was a little surprised at first, but apparently, most alphas can make mind link groups. Okay, want me to do it now? Yes. Well, as you can guess, our parents were over the moon, and so was Leonie and our small group. Although this group is getting a bit larger now. Mason had fixed the security to the way he liked it and changed the people who looked after it. We made a lot of changes, and one of them is to be seen more often outside. We are no longer the long-lost lichens. Things are looking up, and I can't wait for the little pitter-patter of tiny feet running around the palace. I haven't told Mason yet, but we're having more than one pup.
Mason, POV. Walking with Heather on my arm, she was dressed in a full-length formal gown and flat shoes. She felt she was tall enough to not need more height, which caused me to chuckle. Heather made sure my suit matched her dress and color, and I was glad she had great taste and style. We looked great together. Her hair was left out, making it flow over her shoulders and down her back. I love her hair. It was almost to her knees now, and I had heard her threaten to cut it more than once, but thankfully she had not gone through with her threats. As I walked with her, I was sure I was looking as proud as a peacock with all its plumes spread out on display. Showing how proud I was that I was going to be a dad, you could not take the smile off of my face. My wolf said he was confused. He thought he heard more than one heartbeat, but I reassured him that he was most likely hearing the echo of Heather's heart, and he seemed to accept that. Mum and Dad were not the first in line to greet us at the grand doors. Harold and Sabrina were. They shook people's hands and welcomed everyone as they arrived, so we greeted them first, with a warm hug and congratulations, and something along the lines of about time. Then I went on to Mum and Dad. While I had been away, Dad had completed the handover to Harold and Sabrina, having waited for their pup to get stronger before giving the final reins over to them. Mum's eyes lit up, and her face bloomed with a huge smile when she saw us arrive. You should not miss us, being so much taller than anyone near us. One of the benefits of being so tall is you can see over everyone's head and know what is going on ahead of you. Most people moved aside when they realized we were behind them. Dad gave me a strong hug, a huge smile on his face too. He was glad to be getting more pups to love and was interested in seeing how our little lichen would develop. And then it was Mum's turn. As I crouched down to give Mum a quick kiss on the cheek, she took that moment to give me a hug and a kiss on the cheek too. And then we continued inside. Behind us were a lot of lichen males and females hoping to find their mates. They would follow our lead and behave. They had been told that if there was any misbehavior, it might jeopardize future balls and finding potential mates. We need to be seen as civilized. So far, we had barely made it through the double doors, and we could hear the word mate for the first time, and hopefully the first of many, being called out behind us. I just felt today was going to be a big day for both the werewolf kind. I was hoping this ball would have a great turnout of mates finding each other. It would be a relief for many, and as a lichen can live so much longer than werewolves, many are already a few 100 years old and still have not found one. We had briefly talked about the female having found her mate, and it was agreed, what if the male would come to join us, as the lichen geest in the ball had sightseers arriving too. They had made a small roped-off area for the host family, and of course that included Heather and me. We were given a place of high status and were seated with Harold and Sabrina and Mum and Dad. My brothers had opted not to sit at the table with us. They had hoped to walk around the guests and maybe hook up if they didn't find their mates. None of them had high expectations. They loved being sexually active with any willing female. I did not miss those days at all. After finding Heather, all other women ceased to exist. The music was a soft melody, and Heather nudged me. I glanced at her gorgeous, glowing face and nodded her head to the empty dance floor. Understanding her gesture, I happily stood and presented my arm for her to take. We walked to the middle of the dance floor and proceeded to do a slow waltz around the floor. This action worked as more and more couples joined us on the dance floor. The room was starting to get crowded as I moved around the floor one more time. I noted Mum and Dad were now seated at the table, along with Sabrina and Harold. I guess the majority of guests are now here, and the ball can be officially opened. When the song ended, I walked Heather gracefully back to the table and pulled out the chair for her to be seated. She giggled and complied. A man behind us hit his long staff on the floor, making a loud banging noise, gaining the attention of those in the room, and all eyes turned to him. Harold thanked the man and stood up. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming today. Welcome to the very first mixed breed ball. We hope to have one each month for the rest of the year, and depending on how successful it is, as to whether we continue monthly or change it. Let's hope there will be lots of mates found today. I have heard that word being uttered a few times already, and it warms my heart. Don't forget to let Matilda know who had been lucky enough to have found their mate, so we can mark it on our list as being successful." Harold's voice boomed around the room once he was seated. The music started to play and the food was brought out, hot and tasty. We were lucky as our table had its own platters of food, and for the rest of the guests, food was placed on long tables along the wall on a buffet-style arrangement. Finger foods were on offer, and lots of drinks. Soon another group of people arrived through the main doors. Late arrivals, and the word mate was growled out again. This was a great night, with many finding their mates. I think all those naysayers will have to eat humble pie tomorrow.